ستشاهدون بعد قليل تشيب إنغرام وحلقة من برنامج العيش على الحافة.
Coming up next on Living on the Edge with Chip Ingram.
Romance is not like reserved for teenagers, newlyweds, and people who've been married for like 6 months. Romance is reserved for people who do all the things that newlyweds do and people that are dating. Welcome to Living on the Edge. My name's Chip Ingram, and we're in a series called Experiencing God's Dream for Your Marriage. In our last program, we talked about how to have intimacy, 4 keys to intimacy. I made up a little parable about a car, and we talked about the fuel of commitment and how whether you feel like it or not, it's making choices, real choices of commitment that communicate powerful love to your mate. And now we're going to look at 3 other keys to intimacy. And I got to tell you, for years and years, I've done hours of counseling with couples before they get married and probably a lot more hours afterwards. And what everyone wants is that joy, that fulfillment, that intimacy. And whether it's spiritual intimacy or relational intimacy or emotional intimacy or physical intimacy, it's that connectedness that we all long for. And in this program, you're going to learn the keys to get there. Stick around. You know, God wants to change your life through this process. And what you have signed up for the spiritual NFL. And I've never seen an NFL, running back come through the line, gain about 5 yards, get smashed, and then get up and go, boy, that hurt. How come you hit me? That wasn't very nice. If you want to gain yards in the NFL, you get your head knocked off when you come across the middle as a receiver, and linebackers take big shots when you come through the line. But there's not a lot of people that are running backs in the NFL who are accomplishing what they are. And this is a lot more than being a running back in football. This is about getting some of the most precious experiences and quality of life with another person. But I want to tell you, the fuel of commitment begins with a lifelong choice. And it says the rationale is you can write the word to love. Why do you do it? It's to love. And then next to that, just write this little phrase, I'm committed to you. By the way, that's the seed, that's the soil, that's the environment in which real love grows. See, I'm not going to let you see who I am, as insecure as I am, unless I know that you're not going to bail out on me. People hold back for fear that, if I get vulnerable, they're going to see how ugly and terrible and struggles I have. And real deep love can only happen when that other person knows I'm in this, and I'm in it for good. I'm in it when it's good. I'm in it when it's bad. I'm in it, are you ready for this? In sickness or in health. In happiness or in sorrow. till death do us part. Do I understand that there are a couple biblical situations where someone can throw dynamite or TNT or nitroglycerin and blow up a marriage that you don't have any control of, that they just walk out on you and get involved with someone else? I understand. But in about 98% of the cases, that's not the case, is it? How do you do that? You make a weekly choice to say, I love you. Remember that little care list that you made? Where your mate wrote down for you, this is how I feel loved, and you'll notice in the very back I have some questions. But, it's an amazing thing. Every day, choose, and especially try and do something you don't feel like. Every day, try and do something you don't feel like doing that you know communicates to your mate that you love them. And you know what? It's an amazing thing. Just like habits are built, your love can be like a muscle that gets strengthened. And little by little by little by little, you can become the kind of person that someone else is living with. Wow, I knew you were tired, and I knew you didn't really feel like doing that, and yet you love me in this way. You know what that does? That causes a response, and that causes something very exciting to happen. Now, you don't do it. Now, by the way, love means if nothing comes back, that's okay, because you didn't do it for them, you did it for God. But boy, as you do that, you'll see great things happen. A weekly choice to say, I love you. Our model is Jesus. You might jot in the corner of your notes, Hebrews 13:5. I will never, ever leave you or forsake you. Jesus has told me, Chip, good days, bad days, hard days, terrible days, when you mess up, when you think terrible thoughts, when you've done things that make me ashamed of you as my son after I've died for you, Chip, I will never, ever leave you or forsake you. And if he's going to do that for me, what's he want me to do? He wants my mate to know, I will never, ever leave you or forsake you. That's the fuel, and that's commitment. The oil of communication is a lifelong skill of learning to understand each other. I mean, we spent a whole session on communication, but notice it's a lifelong skill. You just don't get it and then you have it for good, of learning to understand each other. The mandate is Ephesians 4. Ephesians 4:15 and 16. But speaking the truth to one another, we're to grow up in what? All aspects into him who is the head, even Christ. And it goes on to say, by that which every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body to the building up of itself in love. And so, when parts start moving, you make progress, they overheat, and you need some oil in the relationship, and communication does that. And the rationale is to know. You want to communicate. Loving says, I'm committed to you. Communication says, I want to know you. I want to know all about you. I want to be a student of you. I want to learn your likes and dislikes. I want to be close to you, so I need to know who you are. And when you know them, then that little phrase you learn is, I trust you. That's what you communicate when you communicate. When you say, I really want to get to know you, if that choice says, I love you, this says, I trust you. I trust you. Well, why do you say that? Because I'm going to progressively take the zipper of my heart of who I really am, and I'm going to keep lowering it. And I'm going to take my heart with vulnerable stuff that if you wanted to, man, you could hurt me very badly. You do understand the people that can love you the most can wound you the most deeply. And so it takes trust. And so what you do is little by little, you kind of put your heart out on that platter. These are my fears. These are my dreams. These are my struggles. And how you handle those will tell me how I'm going to respond to you next time. And of course, the how there is we went over at a weekly conference. And the way we did it, don't make this like such a big deal, but often, I had 4 kids, so it's not, and I pastored a church that ended up, growing to a very large size, so there were lots of pools. But we ate dinner at a certain time, we structured it in, and after dinner, our kids knew, we were going to make a pot of coffee, and you know what, kids? You got homework, go do whatever you want. Sometimes it was 15 minutes, sometimes it was 45, but we sat at the table, and hey, how'd your day go? Kind of what's going on with you? And we stopped and communicated, and 2 of those nights, and it just got perfunctory. Teresa, what are you concerned about? And then she would tell me, so what are you concerned about? What do you dream? What do I dream? What are you willing to do? And we did that to the point where I will tell you, we don't use those questions anymore. We just share unconsciously when we get together what we're concerned about. And now that our kids are grown, we find ourselves eating dinner and there's no kids to shoo away. Hey, you want to run out and get a cup of coffee? Yeah, let's go. You would laugh at what we think is romantic at times. There's a little fast food place with no scenery, and we find ourselves with a broken Chick-fil-A sandwich between us and sitting in a car talking about life and God and one another, looking into the beautiful oversight to the back of a Home Depot. I mean, it just really, you know. But you know what it is? It's just taking a little window to say, I want to be with you and I trust you. And our model is Jeremiah 33:3. This is how God feels about you. Call to me, and I will tell you great and mighty things that you don't know. No, I want to commune. I want to relate. Please speak to me. And if you'll speak to me, if you'll open up the lines of communication, I want to show you things beyond what you'd ever dream. And so he models for us the kind of relationship. And for those of you that have gone through a tough time, and those of you that feel like you've been wounded and you really can't get this deeply in communication, I have a wild illustration I want to share. You can follow along if you want. It's in Isaiah 43. God's people have turned against him. God's people, they're worshiping idols. They won't give him the time of day. And in Isaiah chapter 43, you know, he talks about in verse 21, the people who I formed for myself will declare my praise. Yet, he said, I thought that's what was supposed to be. And then verse 22, yet you've not called on me, O Jacob. You've become weary of me, O Israel. You haven't brought me the sheep of your burnt offering, no worship, no sacrifice. You haven't honored me with your sacrifices. I have not burdened you with offerings. I wasn't after your money. Neither have you filled me with the fat of your sacrifices. Rather, you've burdened me with your sins, and you have wearied me with your iniquities. Some of you feel like that. I mean, don't like look at your mate and go, yeah, that's how I feel. Don't do that right now. But do some of you feel like, you know, I'm just tired. I'm just weary of all the junk I've put up this long in this relationship. We all get there sometimes, right? How does God respond when that's where the relational dynamic is? Look at verse 25. I read this. The first time I read it, I thought, are you kidding me? God says, I, even I, am the one who wipes out your transgressions for my own sake, and I will not remember your sins. Do you hear what he says? This relationship is so important. Even though you're not coming to me, even though 100% of the problem is on your side, I'm going to step in and communicate, and I'm going to wipe out your sins. Not for you. I'm going to do it for me. I love you so much. Our relationship matters so much. I'm going to take the initiative, even though this is your issue. And then listen to verse 26. Put me in remembrance. Let us argue our case together. In other words, hey, let's have a good fight. I mean, let's just get the words coming. State your cause that you might be proved right. This is the God of the universe. Finally, he says, state your cause that you may be proved right. Your first fathers sinned, and your spokesmen have transgressed against me. And then so he talks about some judgment that will occur, and it's all because they wouldn't come and say, God, we just want to talk. So let me encourage you, if you feel like it's, you know, we're a little too far beyond all this, our model is a God who says the relationship matters so much. Do whatever it takes to restore it. The tune-up of caring, an adventure of lifelong friendship, fun, and mutual fulfillment. Circle the word adventure, will you? Everyone thinks, you know, it's not the way it was when we were dating. It's not the way it was because you're not doing what you used to do. Romance is not like reserved for teenagers, newlyweds, and people who've been married for like 6 months. Romance is reserved for people who do all the things that newlyweds do and people that are dating. Right? I mean, when you're dating, you call impromptu. How are you doing? Up late night. How's everything going? Flowers unannounced. A little note that says, I love you. Attention to right? Now, the euphoria begins to wear off, and we get into the grind. You know what? Your relationship has got to be an adventure. But life is life, and you have voicemails and emails, and many of you have kids, and then you have bills. Some of you even have some dogs. Then you got work. Then you got people that get cancer. Then you got ministry at the church, and boom, 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 boom. And pretty soon you wake up, and you look at one another, and you say, I really love you, and I ain't feeling anything. Are you? No. You know what? Get a tune-up. Block off some time. And if you don't have money and you're young, then swap out with another couple that's young and doesn't have money either. We'll watch your kids this time. You watch our kids next time. And, you know, when you count the amount of coffee that people buy and the amount of CDs that people buy and the movies that they rent, you've got the money, if you have the priority, to get away for at least 2 nights and 3 days and get retooled and have some fun. I mean, enjoy one another. And you don't have to wait for the big getaway, but you can have talks, and you can take walks, and you can go on dates, and you can have actual hobbies, and you can do weekends away, and you can get back into the notes and the flowers, and, you know, like buy a new nightgown now and then, and have some fun together and say, I want to keep the pizzazz in the relationship. I want it to be an adventure. But what we do is under the pressure, same old, same old, same old, same old. Well, life gets tired. I mean, if you eat steak for 45 days in a row, about 46 days, not even steaks taste good, right? You got to have variety, and you got to have adventure, and there's got to be some things that you're looking forward to. A lot of it, too, is maybe you don't even know what you're going to do, but, you know, hey, we're 7 weeks away from our getaway, or this year, this time next year, this is what we're going to do. And you dream, and you think, and, you know, some of it you let him plan, and you think, you know, this is not exactly what I think is a great time, but you know what? If he really likes it, I'm going to go along and have fun. And on the other hand, you do it, and you realize, yeah, we'll have some fun, and this is caring, is to share, and put next to that, I like you. I'm deathly afraid there's a lot of couples that are really committed and love one another. I'm just not sure you like each other anymore. I like you. This is about being those best friends. How to do it? I put here a weekly date. I don't know, probably until we moved to Atlanta because of my schedule. Every Friday morning, we went out for breakfast. That was my day off because, you know, I had a Saturday night service and 2 or 3 on Sunday. But every Friday, my wife knew and I knew, that's our little oasis. And we'd get the kids off, take a drive, eat breakfast, walk around, goof off, and didn't do anything but just be with one another until it was time for the kids to go out. Or, you know, maybe it was we had our breakfast date and she wanted to do that and I wanted to do that. But we just knew there was a window of time built that you got to structure it in. When's the last time you went on a meaningful date? When's the last time you took a great walk? And someone else, you got to initiate this stuff. And by the way, a good way to do it is just alternative. If you get together and sit down tonight and talk and say, well, we really should do some of this, okay, just divide it up. I'll be responsible for planning this week's date. You do next week's. And by the way, just get out a calendar. And you know what will happen? It'll be a hassle, and some of you are rolling your eyes going, yeah, right. Tell you what, you put 4 or 5 weeks in a row together, and you start having some fun. You know, some of these other areas that some of you are real frustrated about, fun covers a multitude of sins. That's a Chipism. That's not Bible. The Bible is love covers a multitude of sins, that's true. But fun does. We spend so much energy working through all of our problems and issues. And you just gotta put some emotional gas into the tank of your relationship. And of course our model is who? Jesus again. When his guys got tired and weary of the everyday, come unto me, all of you who labor and are heavy laden, I'll give you a rest. He invites us to do that. Shouldn't we invite ourselves to do that with one another? Well, we've got C. First C is commitment, a lifelong choice. Another C, communication, a lifelong skill, that oil. We've got the C of caring, which is kind of that tune-up on the car. And then the last C is the navigational system of a commission. This is a vision to impact the lives of others for Christ. It's a vision. Circle the word vision. It's a vision. Everything needs a picture of a preferable future, something that you're aiming toward one another. The mandate here is Matthew 28. That wasn't given just to the disciples then. Jesus said, go therefore and make Christ followers. He wants you and you and you and you and me to team up, not just individually, but as marriage partners and make disciples. To see lost people come to Christ, to see them grow to maturity, and see them reproduce their lives. He wants to use us in our neighborhoods and where we work. He wants to use us in our local churches. Make disciples. He wants you to have a ministry. He wants you to do some things together that aren't about you or your family or your kids or your fulfillment, but about other people with needs. And I'll tell you, I do not know exactly how this works, but God, when we begin to think outside of ourselves, an amazing thing happens in the dynamic of the relationship. We get close. The rationale is to serve. It's to serve. We love, we know, we share, and we serve. And when we serve, it says, I need you. I need you. I was on a jury. I've been on a couple juries, and how I end up the foreman, I don't know. I guess I'm too mouthy, but it was a big drug case, and the guy was in the country for the second or third time illegally, and he had 2 bags of cocaine here and a big wad of cash, and it was a stakeout, and it was a part of California where they did a lot of drug dealing, so they had an undercover guy, and the narc was right here. They had 2 cars here. They do it, and boom, they zoom in, and they get him. Well, I'm in a part of California that was very, very interesting. And so I'm on this jury, and I mean, this is like, duh. I mean, you know, if we can't convict this guy, we might as well tell the police for all the world, we can't convict anyone. So we got a couple. This one lady goes, I just don't know. There's still a little doubt in my mind. And the judge said, reasonable doubt. I said, lady, how much, I mean, was the cocaine on him? Yes. Did he have a wad of cash? Yes. Yeah, but maybe, like he said, someone gave it to him just before the guy walked up. I'm going, So anyway, we are now like 3 or 4 days, right, in this jury, arguing and da-da-da-da-da-da, and working these things through, and I'm supposed to keep it organized. And I mean, it was just nutso. And you know, eat your meals together, and you know, you begin to laugh and joke. And here's what I want to tell you: the power. Here's the power of doing something with even people you don't know that's bigger than yourself. And the other issue is, man, this guy's life on the line. You got to be right. And you got to, and we questioned the officers, and we had the transcripts come back in, and we checked everything out. But I mean, the power of doing something beyond yourself, what it does for your relationship. I'm like in a Walmart or a Kmart or one of those big box stores. It's like 3 months later. I'm coming around the corner of one of these stores. Chip! And I look at this lady that I don't recognize, and she comes at me like this. And I go, uh-oh, I wonder what's happening. You know, I wonder if my wife's around. And she just, I mean, she was a rather large lady and gave me a rather large hug. And she just hugged me. It is so good to see you. And I said, oh, good. Yeah, remember the jury that we served on? And wasn't that amazing? And wasn't that good? You know what, my son, I want you to meet stay right here, will you? And she goes and gets her boy. And we just had this great time. And I had this warm, overwhelming feeling. And I thought to myself, I spent 4 days with that lady. I didn't know her from Adam. And 3 months later, she has that kind of affection for me. Why? Because we teamed up to do something that was more important than her life and my life, that was really important, that was bigger than ourselves. And the average married couple that does not have a ministry where you're investing your lives together in the lives of other people, you are missing out on one of the most powerful dynamics of how God brings you together. Just this last fall, my wife and I were involved in a ministry, and just she found, you know, like she does, someone who was really hurting, and they had done really well for many years and fell back into a meth habit. And it was just, I just can't tell you, you know, sitting across a kitchen table with 2 people addicted to meth who long to get out of it in tears and are like this in their marriage. And then going to a Celebrate Recovery in the area, letting them know it's going to be okay, sitting down with them, introducing them to the pastor, introducing them to other people that are addicts. And you know, more than a few conversations around our table were about, how do we help this couple? And honey, yeah, you did this part, and I need to do this part. Oh, you know, Chip, I think if you don't call him, I don't think he'll listen. Okay. Can I tell you that as we together helped this couple, God did something that bound our hearts together? How? Let me suggest you have at least a weekly or bi-weekly, monthly, some kind of ministry that you're involved in on a regular basis. You're not a car, you're a marriage, but it needs fueled by commitment. It needs oiled by communication. You need the tune-up of deep caring and fun together. And you need the navigational system of, why did God put us on this earth with these gifts that he's brought together to make a difference? And then the final important reminder is, I'll give you this. It's a little equation that I have, because when I give this message, what I learned is the real hard-charging people try and do all of this all at once, and they go real crazy, and they try and align all their life, and they work, and then they get completely burned out in 4 or 5 weeks. Here's my little equation for moving forward. Personal time plus supportive friends plus renewing activities equals a fully alive you and a full battery to be a giver. And this may sound absolutely crazy, but some of you realize you really need to focus on your marriage right now. If you're a man, you need some strong men friends to go through this with you. If you're a woman, you need some strong woman friends to go through this with you. Because, see, you're going to have to make deposits in your mate, and they're not going to give back. You need some guys that you're close to and you love. And ladies, you need a woman or two that you can really share your heart with. And this may sound counterintuitive, but whether it's working out or whether it's a hobby or, you know, crocheting or knitting or rollerblading, I don't know what ladies do or whatever but you better, as a woman, have renewing activities built in that fill your own personal tank. And as a guy, you better have those, because you need supportive friends and renewing activities so that you come into the things you're going to address to be a giver. I want to take just a minute, because we've shared a lot about how these keys of intimacy have worked in my life. And Teresa and I, in no stretch of the imagination, have it all together. But as we've worked over the last few years, we've tried to build these things into our life. Well, for example, the fuel of commitment. I try and verbalize, and at first it was just a duty and I made sure I did it. And now it comes naturally. I try and communicate every single day with my words, Teresa, I love you. Obviously, I have taught and been a pastor for about 25 years, but Teresa's had different ministries, and we've tried to find times where, what can we do together? She built a library. I don't mean physically, but I mean a handful of books, and pretty soon, a complete library. On my day off, I would go with her, and I would go through the books and say, good one, we don't want that one. But it was just being with her, doing something together, or opening a home at the end. We lived far